Welcome back to Song Leading Basics, where we look at the basics of how to lead a congregation or choir. In Lesson 3, we'll look at some of the common mistakes that beginning conductors often make. The first bad habit we'll talk about today is one we don't see real often, but occasionally we'll see this, and it's the exaggerated gesture. And so it might be flailing a bit, and it just feels like it's a little bit wild. Well, there's a fairly easy way to know where you should be gesturing, and we call it the conductor's box. Here might be an easy way of finding this. If you think of yourself as doing a big barrel hug, let's suppose there's a barrel here that you want to pick up. You're going to come here with your arms big and wide like this. Let's call that our barrel hug. And then if we take half of this, since we're only conducting for the purposes of these lessons with one hand, we're going to take about half the body here and about this extent here. So now there is about our conducting gesture left and right, somewhere in here. So we're not going to come way out here or come way over here. All right, then we'll go about head height to waist height. And so we'll have about this much range of motion this way, about this much range of motion here. And it should, again, feel pretty comfortable as you find yourself conducting in here rather than all over like so. So that's the first one, is we're going to keep our range of motion within the conductor's box and not exaggerated. All right, the second one is what we're going to call TMI, too much information, and we'll look at this in a couple of ways. One is we need to get rid of the extra curlicues in the basic gesture. We're looking to keep it really simple. So what do these extra curlicues look like? They often look something like this. And that's maybe a little exaggerated, but I see sometimes gestures that are just a little exaggerated. All right, so we're going to try to keep it simple. Here's one way. Think of just moving in straight lines just as training wheels. So if we move just in straight lines, you'll find, we can conduct with very little gesture. Now granted, this looks like a robot, and you wouldn't want to get in front of your congregation or choir like this. But try a bit of this just to feel how simple that gesture is. Now we can add just a little bit of motion in there to make it feel more natural and to give a sense as to where that beat is. And the beat is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you'll see that we've eliminated a lot of those kinds of extra information that we call TMI. And now we'll go to TMI 2. There are other places that we can put too much information, and it's in the rest of the body. And so I've seen this. Sometimes there's this bobbing in the knees as we gesture. Well, now your congregation has to decide. Are you going to follow the hand or the knee? It can also come in unintended waist motion like this. Sometimes I think that comes just from nerves. Sometimes it comes from really wanting the congregation to come along with you. And we're going to try to find a way to get that quieted down. All right, there's another one, and that's head bobbing. And so again, congregation or choir has to decide, do they follow the hand or the head? Well, there's a fairly easy way to get these quieted down, and it's what I would call the wall technique. So very simply, find a wall, lean up against it so that head, waist, and feet are touching that wall. And now you try again. And you find, first you're going to find that you want to keep bobbing, but you're going to feel where that bobbing is happening. Just stay against that wall, keep practicing until you find that your body is able to be quiet. Your head's not bobbing, your knees aren't bobbing, the whole body is just pretty nicely aligned and quiet. And then you'll bring that here, and you'll keep that nice, quiet body and just have not TMI, but just the right amount of information. Another one where we can tend to get too much movement is in what I'm going to call the floppy hand. And that's when the hand is coming here like this. And it's, I think, an attempt to be really kind of evocative with the gesture. But it ends up being more confusing than evocative. Now, one thing that I think can work is if you take a coin or maybe a comb and put it on top of your hand like this. And your job is to conduct in a way that that coin or comb doesn't fall off. And you'll find in a hurry that helps to eliminate the floppy hand. Again, the wall, the comb or coin on the back of your hand, those are just training techniques. And you probably don't want to do this in a real live situation, but it's things that you can do at home to try to teach yourself a conducting technique and a conducting gesture that's more easily followed. Now let's talk about another common bad habit that conductors have, and this is the double jerk start. So really, when we begin, we just want to have a single motion from the hand like this. Joyful, joy. It's very simple. But conductors, as they try to coordinate the breath and the hand, will sometimes do this. Joy, and then the congregation doesn't know, do they start on the first one or on the second one? I'll show you that again. Joyful, and it just leaves the congregation or choir a little uncertain. Where are we actually beginning? So you might think of having nostrils here, and the intake of the breath through the arm and through the hand actually is what sets that hand in motion. So it would be something like this. Joyful joy. Note, there's no movement in the hand before the breath begins. The breath sets that hand in motion. Note this again. Joyful, joyful. Something like that. Take that and practice that one too. Now, another one is the movements of the hand can sometimes get a little bit jerky and actually end up rushing parts of the beat. So it goes something like this. And you'll see that the hand rushes and then it stops. And then it rushes and then it stops in each beat. And instead, what we're after is just to have steady hand movement all the way through there. Again, take a look in the mirror. Find out, are you doing this? Is this one of yours? Most conductors don't have all of these, but many of them have one or a few of them. All right, another one is what I'm going to call multiplaning. And instead of having a plane where the gesture is all along that plane like so, on a single plane, instead, often on beat 2, it comes back toward the body. And here it is again. And one way of fixing that is to go to a wall, again, and to beat along that wall, like this. And you keep your fingers right along the wall, and in that way, your hand is moving along a single vertical plane, rather than coming back toward the body on one of those beats. Well, here are a number of the very common errors that early conductors often make. I encourage you again, practice these things. Get in front of a mirror, see which ones of these you might be doing, and work at fixing them. It takes practice. Be willing to spend a few minutes practicing these. Another way you might think of it is by getting a friend to grab a phone, to videotape you, and together look at the video and see what kinds of things that you might be able to do to clean up that conducting gesture. Thanks for joining us for this lesson, and we'd like to see you at the next lesson. The title of that one is The Prep Beat, Part 1. How do we get a congregation or a choir actually launched together?
My name is Wendell Knisley, and I am the Executive Director of Shenandoah Christian Music Camp. We're delighted to be able to bring to you song leading basics, learning the basics of how to lead a congregation or choir. And we're glad to be able to bring it to you free of charge. But of course, producing video series like this is not free at all. And if you're interested in helping to fund it, to keep this kind of content coming, we invite you to donate. You can go online to our website at www.musiccamp.info.